Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome to a brand new episode of What If Deku Travels Back in Time. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. If you ever would have gotten a second chance, what would you have changed? The boy looks up to the darkened sky with three missing eyes. I think my mom. You know she stressed so much because of me. A weak smile formed on his face. I think I never truly understood how much I strained her when I was younger. You know, with dad gone, she had to pay the bills and raise me all on her own. We only really had each other. And I wasn't the most, ideal kid. Always managed to get in trouble. It must have been horrible for mom who already stressed so much because of small things. His companion smirks just like you. He laughs softly just like me. But my mom. I love her so much. She's always been there for me and she deserves the world. There's a small pause. Regrettably, I can't actually give her that. A small humorless chuckle from the both of them. But with a second chance, well, I think it would be an opportunity to be less selfish, and I would like to take better care of her. Prevent her from getting involved in all this. The other hummed and grinned. You sound like a total mama boy. But well, for as far as second chances go, it's one of the better ones that I've heard. When Fayumi asked Shadow the precious day if he minded her setting up a play date for him, he wasn't sure what to think. Sure, Shadow wasn't exactly what you call social, but he did have several acquaintances from other hero families. A play date with someone he didn't know at all seemed a little bit extreme and certainly not necessary. Shadow was perfectly satisfied with his non-social life. He didn't have time for a social life. But even after telling her that, Fayumi insisted for them to meet, going so far to even trick his father in giving him a day off, which was decidedly a very out-of-character action of her. Shadow had decided as a consequence that everything was better than spending his day with his father being somewhere in a range of 200 feet or less. And thus, ended up in an unfamiliar park in another neighborhood where they were supposed to meet. Suppose because his sister came walking to him while introducing Midoriya Izuku without a second person being there. Shadow stared at her, wondering if this was a joke, and how he was supposed to react. Fayumi. Said person blinked back at him, before following his gaze to the empty space next to her. Wah. It's only 10 minutes later, when they hear several harsh barks, and Fayumi is nearing tears, that his sister lets out a triumphant cry, and Shadow finally lays his eyes on the mystery playdate. He's rather small with casual, but a bit baggy clothes, greenish hair, and later when Shadow has seen him from up close, he will notice the freckles and disturbingly dark circles under green bright eyes, which made them look even brighter. This all wasn't really the thing that stood out to Shadow when he first saw the boy though. No, the thing that stood out was that the boy was also holding 3 dog leashes, with on them 3 dogs, one in particular standing out with an intimidating air, and a size almost as big as the boy himself, a ruffled pitch black fur swamping the body. Besides that, the boy was too basically drowning under 2 garbage bags, a shopping bag and a leather messenger bag, and was seemingly talking to a distressed elderly lady. It was quite the sight. Even more so for his sister who was fretting with wide eyes. I had him next to me 1 minute ago, I swear, where did he get all those bags? And 3 dogs. Who would even let that boy hold on to that dog? That's like a hellhound. It took some emergency interfering, but 10 minutes later the boy was holding on to only the dogs and the messenger bag, which was apparently the only bag that was his own, all the other bags somehow having disappeared, and the lady calmed. His sister had, of course, left them alone after that because she had no mercy, and because while she had emergency interfered, she very coincidentally recognized the distressed elderly, and decided to sit down with her on a bench a little bit further in the park to catch up. And so Shadow and the boy had been left alone. And the 3 dogs. They were still there too and had all been introduced to him now. Horrifically enough, the black hellhound was apparently named Rini. Rini, in addition, also didn't seem to like Shadow. Or anyone for that matter. It was all a little bit out of Shadow's comfort zone. The boy with the messy hair interrupts his thoughts with a shy wave. Hello. Shadow nods at the boy. Hello, I'm Todoroki Shadow, and because this was someone his sister wanted for him to get to know, for him to get along with, it's nice meeting you. The boy blinks at him, and sputters, dipping into a bow, before looking up again. I'm sorry, I was being rude, it's nice to meet you too, Todoroki-san. I'm Midoriya Izuku. Shadow feels his eyes whiten a tiny bit, surprised at the apology, and unsure of what to answer. It's okay. There's an awkward silence and Shadow continues to analyze the boy. He seemed a little bit weird to Shadow, honestly. Different from all the other kids Shadow had met from other famous hero families. Shadow wasn't certain if it was their difference of status apparent in the way he talked, his clothes, his body language, or possibly the first impression he gave Shadow, or even something completely different. He hadn't stared at Shadow's scar or started talking about his father yet, at least. So, you're Faime's brother, he said, interrupting Shadow's thoughts. Shadow stared at him. Was the boy stupid? Was it a rhetorical question? Was he supposed to answer that? Shadow knew it was pretty obvious they were siblings. Their hair colors were probably already telling enough. And Todoroki was pretty sure Fayumi had already told him of their relation anyway, if Midoriya wasn't yet aware of it yet by the amount of media surrounding their family because of his father. God, he hoped this boy didn't just want to talk with him because he wanted to meet Endeavor. How's that? I mean, is she a nice sister? Midoriya cringes. Shadow shifted. Yeah, she's nice. Midoriya looked at him a bit longer, probably expecting a bit more information, but Shadow wasn't really sure what he had to say, or if he even wanted to say those things to someone who was a near stranger. It was true anyway. Fayumi was nice, and Shadow loved her more than any of his other siblings or God forbid his dad. Even if she was a bit of a nervous person, especially around their father. He couldn't really blame her though. Their father was a real bastard. Ah, okay. Yeah, she seems very nice. Do you have other siblings? Yes, I've 2 brothers. Do you like them? I don't interact with them much. Midoriya cringes again. They sounded nice from what your mother told me. Shadow freezes, his eyes zeroing with intensity on the other boy. My mother. And the 2 annoyingly bright eyes blink at him in confusion. Yes, your mother. Didn't Fayumi-san tell you? It's how I met her. I met your mom on accident, and I visit her sometimes. She's very nice. A swirl of emotion whirled up in Shadow, and he clenches his fists. Confusion, anger, sadness, joy, hurt, jealousy. He had an urge to scream, an urge to interrogate Fayumi about this boy and his mother. He wants to punch his father so hard in the teeth he would lose several of them, leaving only empty holes, just as the ones he created when Shadow's mother disappeared to the hospital. But he can't. Not right now. Because he's not yet strong enough, because his mother has been a taboo topic ever since the incident, and because there's a small, sickly boy of his age, staring at his clenched fists with wide, haunted eyes. He forces his muscles to relax, swallows and pulls his lips in what is no doubt a strained smile. It feels weird to smile. How is she? The other glances up at his face nervously again, and Shadow vaguely wonders what kind of pass the boy has for him to notice the small hints in Shadow's body language that even adults seem to miss, and even worse knows to be cautious of them. Shadow has been trained to read body language just like all other things by his father, until he did nothing less than excel in it, and he recognizes the small shifts in the stance from the boy just as well. This boy had an extra guard up ever since Shadow repeated a part of his sentence. But then after scanning his expression for less than a second, a small smile appears on the Midoriya's lips, and he seems to marginally relax. She's alright, I guess. She still has lapses, but the nurses tell me it's already going far better, and she's recovering well. There's a small pause, and the boy shoots him a look Shadow can't really discern. She talks about you a lot. She feels really guilty for what she did to you, or he gestures to Shadow's scar. And suddenly this is entirely too close, and it's very obvious that Shadow is talking with a stranger, and Shadow does not want to talk about this with a stranger, or at all really. The boy seems to notice his sudden hesitance, and again there is a silence. So, do you like dogs? There's several minutes of painful silence, only interrupted by some sounds of the dogs later, and Shadow is really ready for this to be over, but his sister is still talking to the woman, and occasionally sending him encouraging glances. Like now. What? Midoriya's eyes flicker up to meet his, and Shadow doesn't think he's ever seen someone so red and uncomfortable. I'm sorry. That was a stupid question, you don't? I just thought since. Sure, I like them. Fayumi had insisted Shadow should try. The boy startles in surprise, freezing in the middle of his sentence. He shoots him a look again for a second, a weird calculating look, so quick Shadow can almost convince himself he imagined it. That makes Shadow feel like he's an ant under a magnifying glass, and then he curls his lips in a small smile again. Really? Shadow nods, before hesitating. Do you like them? He asks back. He can just imagine his sister proudly crowing at him. What? Oh, yes. I do. They're really amazing. I don't have one personally, but me and Koch-chan, a friend, now have to go to some, We sometimes got to go to some therapy center with them, and it's really nice. The boy finishes lamely and tensely. Therapy. Midoriya fiddles for a few seconds, and Shadow decides it's better not to ask. Then the other seemingly steals himself. Do you like any other pets? Or do you have one? We fish in the backyard. Conversing with Midoriya is as weird as Midoriya himself. Shadow decides to peg it on them being used to different environments for now. It's careful. They both have topics they avoid and thus talk mostly about everyday things, but it's also maybe a little bit nice. Midoriya is tense and awkward, possibly shy, but he's also enthusiastic and nice. He's expressive too. His face is an open book, completely unlike Shadow, and Shadow finds he likes it. It's difficult to dislike the boy when he's absolutely beaming at you when talking about some topic, or when you can literally see dawning horror on his face when he realizes he may have said something offending. It all makes Shadow hope it isn't an act. Midoriya seemed to be very determined to be polite though. Politely distant by, for example, keeping use of the suffix "n", even after Shadow asks him to do otherwise. Even if Midoriya himself doesn't mind Shadow not being polite at all, which Shadow learns when the boy don't even react when Shadow doesn't use a suffix, or when Shadow accidentally lets a rather blunt remark slip past his guard. Midoriya doesn't react insulted or shocked, but he giggles. Not that it matters much. This all will be a one-time thing. Shadow didn't exactly have time for others, and it would only give him problems. And Shadow wasn't sure yet if the only reason Midoriya had talked with him was to get closer to Endeavor. Thus he wasn't to be trusted yet. Still, for this one time, it was agreeable. It's only when the sky begins to darken that Midoriya gasps before cursing, surprising Shadow in the process. Midoriya hadn't seemed to be the type to curse, and telling Shadow he really has to go home, otherwise his mother will become concerned. Just before he leaves, he turns to Shadow and stutters. "So, do you want to meet again sometime?" Shadow says the first thing that comes up. "I'm not looking for any friends." Midoriya looks terribly heartbroken for a second, before he schools his expression in a smile, which would have been convincing if it hadn't been for the expression before. Shadow can almost see his sister look at him with those sad, disappointed eyes. The words are out before he can stop them. If you want to we can try." He tries and cringes mentally. This was not going as planned. Midoriya beams. Shadow doesn't have his own mobile telephone yet, so when Midoriya asks him for it, Shadow gives him Fayumi's number. His shitty dad would be uninformed for as long as Shadow could keep him uninformed. And then off Midoriya goes, waving excitedly while running away and carrying the leather messenger bag with him, the dogs having disappeared sometime along the playdate. Shadow waves back, a bit awkwardly. Then he turns around resolutely. For now, the only thing left was to convince Fayumi to keep the boy secret from their father, and to get his own telephone. Afterwards Shadow could begin to think about how to find a way to tell the boy the next time that they can't be friends, and to convince his sister of the same thing. Vegeta-sensei. You've grown a lot these last years, Midoriya-kun. I think we can soon begin with muscle training. Izuku felt his eyes widen, excitement beginning to grow. Sensei. The old man gave him a quick look from under his thick eyebrows. Yes, I think that would seem wise. Both your mind and body seem reasonably ready. Izuku frowned a little bit at the reasonably, but decided to let it go. His material arts sensei, while amazing, wise and a whole lot of other things, was also strict. With his small, serious stature, his traditional clothing and his thick frowning eyebrows, he already gave of some kind of air, and when he opened his mouth it just became worse. Izuku still liked him though. More than the other material arts senseis he had had before Vegeta-sensei. Vegeta-sensei was after all the owner of the dojo, and only after all the other sensei hadn't anything left to teach him, Izuku was given to Vegeta-sensei. Sensei, of course, could still defeat him while calmly talking about philosophies, or give cryptic messages, or give life lessons or whatever he was in the mood of that day. Sometimes he would just stare at Izuku, expecting him to somehow telepathically get the message. That hadn't happened yet, and Izuku was pretty convinced it never would. Izuku totally blamed his more often than not losing onto the quirk of the man, which gave him the same strength and fitness as a grown man in his fittest years, instead of the fitness and strength he should actually have as a rather old, small man. God forbid he would ever let Vegeta-sensei hear that, however, but it didn't mean he minded losing that much. It was grounding, and Izuku had always liked a challenge. It had been one of the reasons it had been easy to bond with the man for Izuku. Other reasons were the, sometimes private, lessons he got from the man and Vegeta-sensei's special talent to see through Izuku's mask. Of course, it also helped that Vegeta-sensei was the one who allowed him to come to the dojo to practice when he wanted and had even given him a spare key, or that sensei literally made the best calming tea. Midoriya-kun, hurry up, we don't have all day. I want to show you these exercises without your mother worrying again about you coming home too late. Now, I expect you to do the first set daily, and the second every 3 days. If you do more, I will notice. The words were accompanied by a heavy frowning look, making his eyes almost disappear under the eyebrows. Izuku, of course, knew better by now. The last time he had not listened to his sensei, he had seen it the minute he had walked in, and had then ignored him for 2 weeks. Izuku really didn't want a repeat of that incident. Yes, Vegeta-sensei. Deku. Why do you have got a stun gun in your bag? Deku freezes and whips around to look at him. He gasps Koch-chan, looking horrified. You can't just look through someone's belongings like that. Katsuki scoffs and begins rummaging around some more in the bag. It was only natural for him to be curious of the damned bag Deku would take everywhere with him, even though sometimes seeming to do so grudgingly. And Deku had never even opened it wherever they went. It was just there around his shoulder or in his hands, even if he had another bag with him for his schoolbooks or whatever. Or these. Why do you also have fucking handcuffs in your bag? What the fuck is this even? Deku laughs uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his head and neck. It's kind of a long story. Well, it better be fucking interesting then. There was a long pause. What the fuck, Deku? I'm so not impressed. Again, a pause. At least this explains the reason of all the grannies looking at you like you hung the stars in the sky. You fear letting people getting too close to you. You use your amicable politeness to put up a barrier between you and others, which most don't even realize is there. His therapist sighs. Midoriya-kun, it's not healthy, you know that. Izuku huffs slightly. I don't see the harm. Most people don't like me anyway, I'm nothing special, especially when they find out I'm quirkless. Besides, I've already plenty people I'm close with. I've got Mom, and Yagi-san. And I've got Koch-chan and his parents, and Sansa-san and Machida-san. I even made a new friend. His therapist raises one brow. Yes, he's very nice. Tell me something about him. Izuku sends her a mildly discontent look, and in response her expression gets slightly sad and disappointed. Only if you want to, of course. And well, Izuku is weak. He can't tell her how he met him. Because then he would have to tell about Todoroki-san, and then he would have to tell her about he met her because he visited the villain, and that was a whole can of worms Izuku wasn't ready to open yet. He was going to make sure Todoroki-kun wouldn't meet anyone of his family soon. Todoroki-kun and Koch-chan had never liked each other anyway, it was for the best. But Izuku could tell her some other things, so he did. His name Todoroki Shadow, and he's the same age as me. His favorite hero is also All Might, and he's really nice. That's how most of these sessions went after all. Compromises. Izuku gaped at her. You want me to let out my quirk on purpose? The doctor sighs as if his completely reasonable question is stupid. Yes. But why? Research. The man beside her pipes up. The woman slaps him on the arm, before turning back to Izuku. No, not research. We want you to learn how to control your quirk. Which is the easiest done when you actually use it. Izuku blinks at them. You know this quirk is incredibly destructive, right? Yeah, we do, which is why we want you to be free every Saturday, so we can take you to a facility outside the city to avoid unintended side effects. That sounded unusually sensible. Izuku narrowed his eyes at her suspiciously. The woman sighed again. Just come here on Saturday 9 o'clock. Your mom already agreed, so don't worry about her. And that was that. Are you sure this is okay? Izuku looked doubtfully at the tree in front of him. Yes, kid. Just do your thing already. The man sounded annoyed. Which was logical as they had been having this conversation on their entire way here and then for another half an hour, but Izuku had to make sure. That way if something happened he would be able to blame the whole clusterfuck on them. Okay then. Izuku gave in. And he focused carefully on all his negative feelings, letting them blow over him with all their power. When the cracklings started along his skin, Izuku tried to embrace it as much as he could. He could hear the doctors behind him gasp. Then he pulled his arm back and punched the tree as hard as he could. A wave of wind pulled at his hair, and he squinted his eyes. Yeah, not a good idea, Izuku thought as he squinted at the remains and crater in front of him. There was a small silence while everyone stared at it. Okay, so we may have underestimated the effects a little bit, Dr. Michi said as he stared at several metal plates flying out of the air. It took them about 10 minutes before they noticed the weird angle of Izuku's arm. What the fuck? Shit, kid, did you fucking break something? Izuku looked at his arm, a tiny bit confused, to see his arm crooked unnaturally. It was surprisingly enough not as bad as he had had before, with his skin not entirely red and bruised but only slightly. There were also obviously only a few fractures. He nodded. I guess. The doctors all rushed to him in disbelief. Kid, tell us earlier. On the way back the kid is silent. His arm is already bandaged and up for real treatment later in the hospital, and if Dr. Michi Arata was any less heartless, he may have been concerned about the boy. But he isn't any less heartless, and thus enjoys the silence that the weird mood of the boy creates. Unfortunately, he isn't the only one in the car with the kid, and his colleague Sato Suzume isn't heartless enough to not be concerned. "What's up, kid?" The kid looks away from the window in surprise. "What?" His colleague shifts uncomfortably. "You seem, thoughtful." "Yes, well done, Suzume, very eloquent." The boy fiddles uncomfortably and keeps silent. Bless him. 2 minutes there's a nice silence, and then "Why did you just let me go?" "After the, kidnapping I mean. I am, dangerous. My quirk is dangerous." It was really a shame that they were in fact sitting in a car, and there was no way for Arata to nope out of there. Suzume sighs. "It's not that simple, Midoriya-kun. Almost every quirk can be dangerous. Every quirk can get out of control. You just have one which is a little bit more unstable and fluctuating. You can take Michi-chan here as an example. He's got the ability to separate two components from each other. A handy quirk, but it can be very dangerous. Once he was attacked and he accidentally separated the water in the body from the attacker and the body. As you can probably understand, the attacker didn't survive. But it was just an accident. It wasn't Michi-chan's fault. And after that he even joined our organization to help others with difficulties with their quirks, be it because they are more irregular or dangerous quirks, or because they manifest in specific ways, or whatever really, and to avoid things like that from happening again. Oh, great, do tell the fucked up kid of 13 years my fucked up life story. That will absolutely help. The kid was staring at him with wide eyes. But why did you let me go then? If you want to avoid something like that happening, you have not let me go. Because you're going have to learn with this quirk eventually. We want you to learn live with this quirk. And you better learn early than late. Besides, you haven't had that much incidents lately anyway. There was a blessed long silence in which Arata assumed the boy was thinking about what she said. Before, "I'm sorry, but Michi-sensei, your quirk can separate two components from one another. Could I perhaps ask some questions?" Arata sighs. Seeing Shadow again it's amazing. It isn't really Shadow. Shadow was from before, and Todoroki-kun, well, he's from now. Izuku knows better than to confuse those two. Todoroki-kun is after all a child he barely knows, even though Izuku already knows how to read him better than most, possibly all in this point of time, and he knows more facts about his personal life than anyone would be comfortable with if the one knowing was not a close friend. Shadow had been a close friend. One Izuku could rely on without hesitation. One which could read him just well as Izuku could him. And Izuku had loved him a lot. And it was tempting to just look at Todoroki-san as he had done to Shadow. But he wouldn't. Because this was another life with other people, and Izuku had become terrifyingly knowledgeable about the butterfly effect theory and the effects it could describe. Every person Izuku had known could be completely different. He knew this. Because Shadow deserves so much more than that. That being said, meeting Todoroki-kun wasn't completely different from how Izuku imagined Shadow would be when young. Izuku liked him. He hadn't noticed this, but Izuku had isolated himself a lot when he decided to just keep to his community, and not search for a new friend outside of that small circle of people he surrounded himself with. Izuku loved every one of them, but that didn't take away it could become a bit much. So, Todoroki-kun was refreshing. A sweet kid, though a lot of people differed from Izuku's opinion there. Finding Todoroki-kun's ever-blank face unnerving and the fact Todoroki-kun acted very cold repelling. Izuku still thought he was sweet. Todoroki-san was quiet, and he evidently often tried to distance himself from Izuku. He didn't seem used to Izuku's habit to talk a lot about everything or nothing, and honestly seemed a little bit overwhelmed by Izuku sometimes. Their friendship now was still rather tentative, with Izuku trying to pull Todoroki-kun from his shell, and Todoroki-kun trying his hardest to stay in it. Izuku already had some process though. While most times Todoroki-kun would close up and let Izuku do most of the talking, sometimes Todoroki-kun would talk and even tug the corner of his mouth up, if only a little. They hadn't talked about personal stuff yet. Not about their quirks at all, and their family relations only in passing. Izuku hasn't brought up Todoroki-kun's father yet, and Todoroki-kun hadn't asked about his quirk yet. Izuku was thankful for that, even though Todoroki-kun probably not even noticed it was a big deal for him. Izuku hadn't invited him over either yet. It made Izuku feel a little bit guilty, but the chances of his mother finding out about the visits to the villain were too big for Izuku to take the risk. He had had plans to use a cover story. Todoroki-kun and Koch-chan would eventually meet after all. It would mostly correspond with reality, but he would say he had met Todoroki-kun's mother in the building from the QSS. Only then there was the chance of his mother wanting to meet her. Which was only going to end up badly. Izuku was going to invite him soon sometime when he knew his mom would be on a business trip though. It was the only thing for now he would be able to do with the certainty that no one would discover Izuku sneaking. Izuku was of course also aware that his own nervous behavior wasn't especially helping with forming the friendship, as it confused Todoroki-kun. And man, Todoroki-kun really deserved a less messed up person trying to become his friend. He had once asked Izuku why he asked him to meet so often if he didn't like being with him. Izuku had naturally been confused, and had hurriedly told him that he did in fact like spending time with him, whereafter he had asked why he would ask him that. The heartbreaking answer had been that Izuku's reaction and body language were off-putting and not corresponding with what he said. This had resulted in Izuku admitting he had anxiety issues. The confession had sparked something in Todoroki-kun's eyes that Izuku hadn't been able to read. He had received the confession well though. He had probably already suspected that Izuku wasn't completely fine, even though he had ever said anything of the sorts. And had been surprisingly enough a bit nicer to Izuku after the confession, and had tried to take it into account with his actions. Izuku wasn't sure if that made him happy though. On the one hand, he didn't want Todoroki-kun to pity him. On the other hand, Todoroki-kun had never really been one for pity, and Todoroki-kun did act nicer now. Of one thing, it did make Izuku a bit more relaxed around him. And it made him think that even if he wasn't Shadow anymore, Todoroki-kun wasn't so bad either. Koch-chan. Koch-chan grunts angrily. Koch-chan. What are you doing? Deku prompts weakly. The boy grunts again. A few seconds pass. The blonde boy sighs and turns around when it becomes apparent Izuku isn't going to leave immediately. What does it look like that I'm doing? Frankly, Izuku has no idea what Koch-chan was doing. To Izuku it also didn't appear like it should be obvious what he was doing. There's some kind of bag hanging from the tree. It seemed like some paper of sort was stuck onto it, though it was largely unrecognizable now with most of it having been burned away, though Izuku swears he can see something on it which strangely resembles lab coats. It wouldn't be so surprising. Ever since the incident, Koch-chan has had an irrational hatred for lab coats. It had nearly given their teacher a stroke when Koch-chan had burned the several ones he was given to put on in science class. Apparently after that Koch-chan had had a long, stern talking with his mother, therapist, teacher and some other adults. He didn't burn school lab coats on purpose anymore. At least that's what he had grudgingly said, and Izuku liked to pretend he didn't see the angry eyes focused on the coats when they were supposed to wear them, nor that he had heard of the mysterious fire that had started in the room that held them just after Koch-chan had come back from the toilet. You're abusing a bag with suspicious pictures on it. There was a small pause where Koch-chan rolled his eyes, looking extremely exasperated with him. Are you finally considering the anger managing exercises your therapist recommended? His friend freezes. Ha. Hell no. That bastard doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't have any anger managing problems. And, oh, oops. Izuku had forgotten, the anger managing exercises were a sore spot for Koch-chan. Koch-chan already hadn't liked going to the therapist. From what Izuku heard, he was just as bad a client as Izuku was, and after that offer had refused to go to the therapist, and had held up for almost a whole month, before Izuku's mom and Masaru and duo teaming managed to convince him to go again. Whenever someone would bring it up, it would however almost unerringly end up in Koch-chan throwing a tantrum. So, what are you doing? Izuku says, cutting Koch-chan off. Koch-chan sputters before gruffly I'm training. He says it so confidently that Izuku is almost convinced that should have been clear from the start on. I thought you trained by beating up people you don't like. Which was basically anyone. Izuku tried to keep his disapproval out of his voice, but by Koch-chan's irritated huff, he reckoned he hadn't succeeded. So, he tried another route. Are you sure this is the best way to do it? Yes. Now, will you leave alone? Izuku is quiet for a while as he stares at Koch-chan starting his training up again. Koch-chan. What now? Koch-chan snarls annoyed. You know your stance is wrong, right? Koch-chan turns around to look at him in disbelief. You're supposed to turn your left foot straight forward. Izuku elaborates after a second of hesitating, not sure if he should when he sees the look on the blonde boy's face. He shifts to give the correct example of the stance while looking at him carefully. Koch-chan looks at him, scanning his movement closely before copying him. Izuku observes and nods. Yes, like that. And then Koch-chan overbalances and trips, landing with white eyes on his rear. Izuku starts before he presses his lips together to keep from laughing. Koch-chan however easily recognizes the amusement twinkling in his eyes. You bastard. Izuku begins to laugh. Katsuki grumbled as he stepped inside later that evening. It was hot outside, and his skin was sweat and awful, and all he wanted is a long cold shower to cool him off. Thus, he wasn't really focused when he put his stuff away, and it took him a while to notice his mom standing at the stairs, looking at him with her arms crossed over her chest. Feeling slightly unnerved, Katsuki angrily bit out, "What do I want, stupid hag?" She kept staring at him, before bowing over slightly and picking up some sport bag standing beside her. Wordlessly, she shoved it to him, making him stumble. It was fucking heavy, damn it. Now Katsuki definitely knew something weird was going on. Normally, his shitty mom would already have tried to tear off his head by now. Not that she would be able to. "What the fuck is this?" As he asked it, he opened the bag. In it there was a lot, but Katsuki was able to make out weights, a tracksuit, a headguard, gloves. "What the hell? That's a fucking sport bag, are you an idiot?" Katsuki scowled, and she shoved something else to him. "Some kind of card. And what is that?" "That is a gym card. You start next week on Monday." "What?" His mother sighed, obviously annoyed. "It's a gym card. So, you can go to the gym and train without looking like an idiot." Katsuki bristled. His mom ignored him. "Look kid, you piss me off daily with your fucking action. And don't think this is some kind of approval for you fucking those brats up. It's not like I'm excited about your attempt to fight everything that breathes. But you want to be a fucking hero, right? So, stop getting into these fucking petty things you call fights, and learn how to fucking kick the asses of fucking experts, not worthless little shits. Besides, someone needs to look out for your beansprout of a friend." Katsuki wisely stays quiet about the fact that the last time Deku and him wrestled, Deku had laid him onto the ground in 30-second flat, even if Katsuki had managed to overpower his hold later. He also decides not to declare that the nerd sensei from his dojo apparently has been starting to focus more on strength lately, and the nerd's annoying growing muscles resulting from that action. They stare at each other for a minute before Katsuki scoffs and turns around. "It's not like I need any help. I'm going to be fucking number one anyway." And if he mutters a small something while walking away, nobody has to know. "Thanks though. Yogi-san, are you there?" There was a light crackling from across the phone. "Ah, my boy, how are you?" "It's actually going a lot better. We're dealing." Yagi felt his stomach twist at the words. He knew better than try to get farther into detail about the topic though. Yagi had been mostly informed about all the happenings, but he knew better than to expect they would have told him everything. Yagi regretted neglecting them those days. When they told him that he asked them if he should take some time off to help support them trying to convince him to keep on working should really have been enough indication of how bad it was. But in the end Midoriya's in all their nervous but stubborn glory had convinced him it wasn't necessary. He asked Namasa to look after them anyway. It was hard to try to comfort and take care of someone when they were several countries away. "Mom is going to be able to take less long hours again for her work soon. My therapist said I'm doing better, and I've been getting more sleep. And Mom's birthday is soon, and I have already thought up something for her present, so that's nice too." Yagi hummed. "Really?" "Yes, I've been thinking she's been stressing a lot lately. And I recently met someone who owns some kind of relaxation clinic with spa and stuff. She apparently hates owing someone's stuff, so she's been insisting I ask something back of her. At first I didn't want to, but in the end, she proposed to just give my mom several services for free over a span of time as payback. And, well, if it's for my mom I can't really refuse it. So, I hope she will enjoy it." Yagi decides to ignore the grown woman being in debt to Izuku-kun for now, and thinks it over. It seems something which would be nice for her. Inko-san should take some time off for herself and relax a bit more. It's a good gift. Izuku-kun thanks him, and Yagi can almost a pleased, shy smile on the other side of the phone. "But, I've actually something I want to tell you and your mom. I've got some news." The first time Midoriya coughs blood in front of him it gives Shadow, quite frankly, a heart attack. Sure, the boy is still suspicious, and Shadow still doesn't want him as a friend, but that doesn't mean he wants him dead. And Shadow doesn't know much about injuries or sicknesses that involve coughing blood, but he's pretty sure that they're all serious. Midoriya reassuring him it's nothing doesn't convince him at all. He seems like the unreliable sort with these kinds of cases. Besides, who would call coughing blood nothing? The injury or sickness had obviously also touched his head. It takes some effort, but Shadow is bigger than Midoriya, and Midoriya, while reluctant, didn't seem to actually want to use force to stop him, and thus they end up at the closest hospital. Midoriya comes in the hospital looking defeated and exhausted with a mostly blank, but also a bit triumphant, Shadow next to him. The moment they step up at the reception desk, the man behind it focuses on Midoriya. "Ah, Midoriya-kun, right. You alright?" Midoriya nods despondently. Shadow feels slightly confused. "Your friend alright then?" The man cocks his head. Again, Midoriya nods. The grin begins to crawl on the receptionist's face. This one of those unfortunate misunderstandings then. Midoriya makes a sound which distinctly sound like a cross between a whine and a groan, and then nods. That day Shadow learns Midoriya is even weirder than he already thought. Also, somebody probably should look out for him, because obviously, Midoriya himself wasn't doing the best job of it. It was evening. The wind was howling inside, and Katsuki was sitting at their kitchen table together with Deku, Auntie and his mom and dad. They were eating curry, and Katsuki was quietly enjoying the hilarious side of the Midoriyas trying to compliment the food, while having tears in their eyes from the spiciness. Auntie Inko had even looked ready to interfere out of concern when she had seen Katsuki pick up another red pepper to add onto his plate. When she had once had carefully brought it up that it wasn't healthy for a kid to eat so spicy, his mom had basically ignored all her protest, so she probably knew it was useless anyway. I want to go to UA. Katsuki interrupts the silence. His mom hums indifferently as answer. Katsuki frowns, annoyed, but he contains himself and elaborated. At school, we were asked to begin to think about to what high school we want to go next. I want to go to UA. So? That has been obvious for ages now. A freaking fanboy for All Might, that's what you are. Though you better clean up your act if you even want to have a chance, useless as you are. Shut it, hag. I'm perfectly capable of getting in UA. He roars. What's that, you little punk? Get your attitude under control. You're already failing. His mother snarls back. His dad, obviously used to this, sighs and interrupts before the argument could get out of hand. What about you, Izuku-kun? Have you already decided to what school you want to go? His stupid bimbo of a mom snorts. He will obviously follow our fanboy number one over there, and save him from himself. Dad nods, looking relieved. Katsuki feels a spark of annoyance igniting. Actually, I may be thinking of not, doing that. Deku interrupts nervously. Katsuki whips around to look at him in surprise, and he sees everyone else follow his actions. Deku looks somewhat tortured as he continued, sending Katsuki a nervous glance. I've actually been recruited by Himiko High. So, I was possibly thinking about going there. I'm not sure I'm up to that level though. You don't mean Himiko High, ever prestigious, home of the genius and unbearably smart Himiko High, do you? His mom says slowly after a short pause. Izuku stays silent for just too long. Oh my god, he does. You were recruited by Himiko fucking High. Izuku nods uncertainly. And fuck, if that isn't impressive. Of course, Katsuki has always known Izuku to be smart. Because Izuku was. He had the best grades of the class, of their whole grade. But Himiko High, that was a whole other story. Izuku goes on. I'm not sure if I want to go there though. It's said to have a really hard curriculum, and I'm not sure I would be able to keep up. I'm not that smart. Izuku again continues before anyone can interrupt. They also don't have a curriculum for heroes. It's silent for a minute, while everyone lets the meaning of what Izuku said sink in. So, just don't go then. You've been wanting to be a hero since 3. 2. I don't even remember anymore. Izuku fiddles and avoids their gazes. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And maybe I shouldn't become a hero. This, again, catches the focus of everyone. What the fuck? Katsuki starts, and he's not the only one. Everyone's talking begins to overlap, jumbling together, and Deku shrinks into himself. Katsuki decides then to do his one merciful deed a year and screams on top of his lungs, shut the fuck up everyone, and Deku fucking explain, you stupid nerd. The rest of the table becomes silent reluctantly, and Izuku shrinks into himself ever more. I know, I said I want to become a hero, for basically all of my life, and I do. He holds up his hands to stop any interruptions. It's just, a lot has happened this last year, and I'm not sure I can be a good hero. I still can't control this quirk completely, don't know if I will ever be able to. And if accident happen, it won't be just my own safety, but also others on the line. Others that I'm supposed to protect as a hero. And on top of that my mental health hasn't been amazing these last months. Heroes aren't supposed to have panic attacks or flinch when someone touches them. Izuku's shoulders slump, and his ever-expressive face twists in self-loathing, making Katsuki want to scream at him, but he doesn't because Deku isn't done yet. And, Izuku's eyes flicker to his mom, who looks conflicted, fiddling nervously. That's mostly it. And Katsuki understands. Because Auntie was always worrying for Deku a lot. And Deku has always been very clear in the fact that family, his mom, is important for him. Deku, being the small idiot he is, probably doesn't want to worry Auntie any more than he already does with his usual craziness. Still, that doesn't mean he's just going to allow Deku not go to UA after all these years. Katsuki still has to prove he's number one after all. Why did you save him? I mean, why did you even become a hero? This society has done nothing but belittle you, ever since you took upon the title of quirkless when you were small. The ones with quirks will forever feel superior, and the ones without quirks will forever let them walk over them. The only reason people with quirk fight for you is because of selfishness and deceitful morals, so that they can better about themselves. To not even get started on the quirkless ones, they have not fought for their own rights, nor for yours. They have stood by while they and their companions were disparaged and ridiculed. You don't owe this world, this city, these people nothing. It's been my dream since I've been small. I like helping others. Others? Do you see them as they equal to you? Well, yeah, of course. Don't sound so surprised. They didn't see you as equal when you were young after all, did they? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious.